2:17 local time. The night over the Persian Gulf is calm, almost unnaturally quiet, across the forward deck of a U.S. Navy destroyer assigned to the 5th Fleet. A lookout scans the darkness ahead. The engines hold a steady cruising rhythm. Far off on the horizon, the lights of Bahrain appear as a faint glow against the black water. Inside the Combat Information Center, the radar picture is clean until it changes. A surface search operator leans closer to the screen. New contacts bearing 035, multiple. The spy radar begins drawing thin, fast-moving returns rising from the northern coastline. At first, they look like clutter. A few seconds later, the tracks become steady, speed increasing. Altitude low, inbound. The tactical display shifts from green to amber. 2:17, possible cruise profiles, the Air Warfare Coordinator says, his voice calm and controlled. Count 12, stand by for classification. No one raises their voice, they do not need to. Condition 3, set and man all key stations. Across the ship, boots strike steel, hatches seal. The forward 5-inch gun turns a few degrees to starboard, subtle and deliberate. Close-in defense systems come alive with a rising mechanical hum. Below deck, vertical launch system cells unlock one after another. On the main screen, the contacts multiply. 14, 17, 20. Some skim just above the sea. Others rise briefly before dropping back down in shallow arcs. This is not random. This is coordinated. 2:18. The destroyer's Aegis combat system begins automatic threat evaluation. Every track receives a number: speed, bearing, projected closest approach, estimated path. Time to closest point of approach, 3 minutes, 40 seconds. The ship is operating legally in international waters, part of the security shield surrounding the U.S. 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Tonight, that shield is being tested. Recommend engagement, the weapons officer says. Engage, the captain replies. No pause, no hesitation. The first pair of SM-2 defensive interceptors erupts from the forward VLS cells, punching into the night on twin columns of flame. The deck trembles. Sailors on topside watch feel the heat roll past them as the interceptors climb high, engines burning bright against the dark sky. Inside CIC, the intercept geometry tightens. SM-2 time to intercept. 30 seconds. The incoming tracks split. Some drop even lower, following the curve of the sea. A classic sea skimming profile built to reduce reaction time and appear late on radar. 2:19. Splash 1. A bright flash opens above the Gulf. Debris falls harmlessly into open water. Splash 2. But the radar picture does not clear. More tracks are coming. Electronic warfare operators bring the SLQ-32 suite online. The destroyer begins sending controlled bursts of jamming energy, searching for guidance signals and working to weaken targeting locks. New launch indications, a sensor technician calls out. Additional heat signatures inland, wave 2. The number on screen climbs past 25. This is not a warning. This is saturation. Somewhere along the northern coastline, launch sites are still active. 2:20. Another pair of SM-2s fires, then another. The aft launcher joins the engagement. Defensive interceptors rise in staggered rhythm, cutting through the darkness. The sky above the Gulf flickers with distant flashes, white bursts opening against the horizon. Track Sierra 2-1 breaking through the outer ring, the Air Warfare Coordinator warns. Sea Skimmer, Mach .8, bearing 040. Time to arrival, 1 minute, 50 seconds. The engagement moves closer. Shift to ESSM. Evolved Sea Sparrow interceptors launch in tight pairs, built for fast, low-altitude threats. Their motors ignite and they flatten out, racing just above the waterline. The destroyer heels slightly as it adjusts course, narrowing its profile and tightening the defensive angle. 2:21. Ballistic profile detected. Another voice cuts through the room. High arc, descending fast. A medium-range ballistic threat, likely launched minutes earlier, is now entering its terminal phase. Recommend SM-6. Shoot! A single SM-6 streaks upward, climbing hard, guided by shipboard radar and off-board sensor data. For a brief moment, the tactical screen becomes a web of intersecting vectors. Then the confirmation comes. Intercept confirmed. High altitude. A low-distance shock rolls across the water. But the crisis is not finished. 4 cruise profile threats remain inside the outer defensive ring. Distance closing, 35,000 yards. The Phalanx close-in weapon systems begin tracking automatically. White domes rotate with precise mechanical focus. Radar feeds overlaying the remaining inbound tracks. 2:22. Multiple leakers. Prepare close-in engagement. Still, there is no panic. No shouting. Only practice voices and systems moving through procedures rehearsed long before this night. Above the Gulf, another flash marks an ESSM intercept. 3 tracks remain. One smaller signature shifts slightly off axis, angling toward the larger radar silhouette deeper in the formation, toward the 5th Fleet flagship operating in support. The Air Warfare Coordinator leans forward. Confirmed coordinated approach. This is deliberate. Outside, the Gulf remains black and flat. Inside CIC, the glow of radar screens reflects across focused faces. Seconds fall away. Layer by layer, steel, sensors, and software stand between the fleet and the incoming threats. And somewhere beyond the horizon, more launch signatures begin to appear. 2:22 local time. The first wave is still not over. On the tactical display, 4 cruise profile tracks remain inside the outer defensive ring. They are low, fast, and riding the curvature of the sea at less than 50 feet above the surface. Sea skimming, designed to vanish into surface clutter until the final seconds. Range, 28,000 yards, the Air Warfare Coordinator calls out. Speed steady, bearing 040. The destroyer's spy radar adjusts gain, cutting through surface clutter and separating real contacts from the noise of the sea. Fire control systems narrow their focus, placing each inbound target under precise tracking beams. Engage with ESSM. 2 more evolved Sea Sparrow interceptors ignite from the forward launcher, their exhaust briefly lighting the bow in a harsh white glow. Almost immediately, they level out, racing just above the waterline. Inside CIC, no one blinks. Time to intercept, 12 seconds. The first ESSM meets its target in a sharp flash low on the horizon, barely visible above the black water. The second follows moments later. Fragments scatter across the surface, sending ripples through the darkness. 2 tracks disappear, 2 remain, 2:23. Ballistic re-entry confirmed, second profile descending. The radar picture shifts upward. A high-altitude track far steeper than the cruise profile threats is dropping rapidly into terminal phase. SM-6 ready? Shoot. The Standard Missile 6 launches from the aft VLS, climbing aggressively into the night. Its guidance updates mid-course, fed by a composite radar picture shared across multiple ships in the formation. This is not a single-ship engagement. This is a network. The SM-6 streaks upward like a thin white line cutting through the darkness. For several seconds, both icons close on the tactical display. Then the call comes. Intercept. A distant flash blooms high above the Gulf. The ballistic track vanishes. But the pressure does not stop. 3 new low-altitude contacts appear on the northern edge of the screen. Additional sea skimmers. Wave 2 confirmed. Total inbound now 27. On the bridge, the captain stands steady, hands clasped behind his back. He does not watch the flashes on the horizon. He watches the sea itself. Maintain course, he says quietly. Below deck, the electronic warfare team increases output. The SLQ-32 suite sends controlled bursts across known guidance frequencies. The electromagnetic spectrum fills with carefully shaped noise, measured, deliberate, and precise. Detecting active radar seekers, the EW officer reports. Multiple emissions, Iranian profile. That confirms it. These systems are not drifting blind. They are actively searching. 2:24. Range 18,000 yards. Recommend close-in preparation. The Phalanx close-in weapon systems complete their warm-up cycle. Their internal radars lock onto the nearest inbound track. The white domes rotate smoothly, almost calmly, as if the entire moment has already been rehearsed. Mount 1 tracking. Mount 2 tracking. Outside, the first cruise profile threat breaks the horizon line, a faint silhouette against the black surface of the sea. CIWS. Free. The forward phalanx opens with a tearing metallic roar. Streams of tracer fire arc into the darkness, forming a dense defensive wall. The inbound target breaks apart in midair, ending in a sharp flash less than a mile from the hull. Fragments fall into the water. The ship does not flinch. Splash 1. Another cruise profile threat drops slightly lower, trying to exploit the engagement angle. Shift Mount 2. The aft phalanx opens up, its rate of fire relentless, 75 rounds per second. The target shatters, debris skipping across the surface before disappearing beneath the waves. Splash 2, but the screen is still not clear. A smaller radar return shifts unexpectedly. An unmanned aerial vehicle, slower than the others, but maneuvering. Drone contact adjusting vector, possible targeting platform. Instead of making a direct approach, it begins to circle slightly, likely feeding final guidance updates to the remaining threats. Electronic spoofing engaged, the EW officer announces. The destroyer pushes false positional data into the spectrum, attempting to pull the drone's sensors away from the formation. For a moment, the UAV steadies, then it wobbles. Its track drifts several degrees wide. Drone losing lock. A final burst from the forward phalanx ends the contact. The small signature dissolves into static. 225. The tactical display begins to stabilize. No active inbound tracks inside 10,000 yards. Outer radar still scanning north. Silence returns to CIC, but it is not relief. It is recalculation. Launch origin triangulated, an intelligence specialist says. Multiple coastal batteries. Approximate grid confirms coordinated inland sites. This was deliberate, not a rogue unit, not a mistake. A synchronized barrage aimed at the 5th Fleet. The captain receives updated reports from the rest of the formation. Other destroyers confirm successful intercepts. No direct hits, no serious damage. Only minor shock vibration from nearby intercepts. The fleet is intact. Above the formation, the 1st Combat Air Patrol fighters from the carrier group check in on secure frequencies. Viper flight on station, establishing barrier. The fighters push north, forming a protective arc beyond the ship's radar horizon. 227. The sea is dark again. No visible flames, no heavy smoke, only cooling debris scattered across open water. But inland, infrared satellites detect residual heat blooms from launchers that have not yet moved. The Air Warfare Coordinator looks toward the captain. Sir, coastal signatures remain active. The implication is clear. The defensive phase is ending. The next move will not be another interception. It will be a decision. And somewhere along that coastline, radar operators are watching the same sky, knowing their first wave did not break through, but not knowing what may already be moving in response. 2:28 local time. The sea is quiet again. Too quiet. Inside the Combat Information Center, no one relaxes. The radar picture is clean for the first time in 11 minutes, but the infrared overlays tell another story. Faint heat signatures continue to flicker along the northern coastline. Launch sites that have not gone cold. Recommend sustained close-in posture, the Air Warfare Coordinator says. The captain nods once. Maintain defensive configuration. No step down. The destroyer remains at general quarters. Phalanx mounts stay armed. Missile cells remain ready. Electronic warfare systems continue low-level sweep patterns, searching for renewed emissions. Above the formation, 2 F/A-18E Super Hornets settle into a tight combat air patrol orbit. Their radars scan outward, extending the defensive perimeter dozens of miles beyond the ships. Viper 1, picture clean immediate, comes the call from airborne early warning. Stand by. A new air defense radar activation appears inland. On the destroyer's electronic warfare console, a narrowband spike rises out of the background noise. Fire control quality, brief search pattern. They're trying to rebuild the picture, the EW officer reports. Intermittent lock attempts. This is the fragile moment, after the first exchange, before the second. 229. A fresh contact blinks onto the radar. Single track, low altitude, speed increasing. Possible late launch, CIC calls out. Bearing 032. No mass wave this time, just one smaller radar return, moving fast and low. Range, 35,000 yards. The captain does not hesitate. Engage early. An ESSM leaves the launcher and cuts low across the water. Seconds stretch across the Combat Information Center. The inbound track dips even lower, trying to hide inside surface clutter. Track maneuvering. The interceptor corrects mid-course, writing updated guidance from the ship's radar picture. Then the call comes. Intercept. A sharp flash appears on the horizon. The single track disappears, but the radar sweep expands again. 2 fast-moving aerial contacts lift from inland, climbing quickly. Possible aircraft, the Air Warfare Coordinator says. Speed 450 knots, heading south. Fighters from the north level out at medium altitude, staying just beyond declared engagement envelopes. Viper flight, contacts north. Angels 20, airborne control reports. Viper 1, tally 2. The American fighters angle slightly higher, showing radar presence without crossing the next line. No shots are taken, no hard locks are declared, only presence. Controlled, visible, unmistakable. 231. Below deck, the destroyer's crew conducts rapid system checks. Minor shock vibration is reported in forward compartments. No structural compromise. All major systems remain green. On deck, sailors stay secured at key stations. The faint smell of burned propellant still hangs in the night air. Drone-sized return, northeast quadrant, a radar operator says suddenly. A small contact appears, moving with an uneven path. Possible reconnaissance. Engage with non-kinetic first, the captain orders. Electronic warfare output increases. Controlled pulses spread outward across the spectrum. On the screen, the drone's track begins to jitter, struggling against the interference. Contact unstable. The UAV dips, recovers, then turns sharply west. Recommend kinetic. Approved. The forward phalanx fires a short, disciplined burst. The drone vanishes into a scatter of fragments. 2:33. The sky remains contested but restrained. The northern aircraft keep their distance. No fire control radars illuminate the formation. No new launch signatures appear. On the tactical display, the 5th Fleet formation settles into a layered defensive arc. Destroyers forward, cruiser offset, flagship protected deeper inside. Each ship shares sensor data through encrypted networks. What one ship sees, every ship sees. This is not improvisation, this is doctrine. 2:35. Launch site activity decreasing, intelligence reports. Multiple coastal radars offline. The earlier intercepts and the immediate combat air presence have disrupted the timing. The window is closing, but inland infrared satellites show something else. Mobile launch vehicles are shifting position. They are not standing down. They are relocating. The captain studies the updated grid. Confirm launch origin triangulation. Confirmed. Multiple batteries within the coastal belt. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Prepare response options inside CIC. The tone in the room changes. Not louder, not faster, but different. Defensive calculations give way to response geometry. Mission planners begin loading pre-surveyed coastal coordinates. Carrier air wing controllers update fuel states and readiness for aircraft already airborne. Above the fleet, the F/A-18S widen their orbit slightly, shaping an invisible boundary across the northern sky. The opposing fighters bank northward, increasing separation. They have seen the intercepts. They have seen the barrier form. 2:37. No new inbound tracks. No renewed radar locks. The Gulf returns to black stillness, but the fleet remains fully alert. Because in modern naval warfare, survival is not the final objective. Control is. The last debris from the intercepted threats sinks beneath the calm surface. The radar picture now shows only friendly tracks and distant coastal returns. The air warfare coordinator turns slightly toward the captain. "Sir, defensive phase complete, fleet secure." A beat passes. The captain nods once. "Very well." He looks north toward the coastline that had lit up only minutes earlier. "They launched," he says quietly. In the dim glow of CIC screens, response planning icons begin to populate the map. And somewhere inland, radar operators watch their scopes clear, unaware that the next phase has already been calculated. Not in anger, not in panic. In precision. 2:41 local time. The defensive phase is over. No alarms sound now, no interceptors rise from the deck. But inside the Combat Information Center, the atmosphere has shifted. Response overlays replace intercept vectors on the main display. Coastal grids illuminate in quiet blue squares. Radar arrays, suspected mobile launchers. Command nodes cataloged through months of surveillance. "Confirm launch origin correlation," the captain says. "Correlation confirmed," intelligence replies. 3 primary coastal batteries, 1 fixed radar array, 1 mobile command vehicle, all within 20 nautical miles of the shoreline. The decision does not require debate. Execute response package. There is no dramatic pause. No raised voice. Only the transmission of authorization codes through secure channels. 2:43. On the destroyer's forward deck, VLS hatches cycle open in sequence. Deep within the hull, Tomahawk cruise missiles receive final targeting updates. Coordinates, terrain matching profiles, and low-altitude routes designed to cross the Gulf before turning inland. Tomahawk ready. Fire! One after another, the missiles launch with a deep, controlled roar. They rise briefly into the night, then level out, engines steady as they disappear northbound into the darkness. At the same moment, 20 miles to the west, another destroyer in the formation opens its own launch cells. More Tomahawks rise into the night. This is not the response of a single ship. It is coordinated suppression. 2:45. Above the fleet, the E-2D Hawkeye tightens its orbit, sending continuous radar updates to surface ships and airborne fighters. The carrier air wing, already in the sky on defensive posture, shifts into a new mission profile. Strike Alpha cleared inbound. Airborne control transmits. 4F/A-18E Super Hornets adjust course north, descending slightly to remain below hostile radar coverage. Under their wings, precision-guided weapons hang steady, already programmed for hardened coastal positions. Behind them, EA-18G Growlers trail at a measured distance, electronic warfare pods active and ready to disrupt coastal sensors before they can rebuild a clear picture. 2:47. The first Tomahawk reaches waypoint 2 and banks sharply inland. On the destroyer's screens, real-time satellite confirmation begins feeding in. Heat signatures flare along the coastline as coastal radar arrays attempt to reacquire targets. Coastal Fire Control Radar active, EW reports. Seconds later, the radar signature vanishes. Tomahawk impact. A bright flash opens over the fixed array position. The display confirms the site is no longer functioning. Radar site neutralized. Another Tomahawk races low across the water before turning toward a suspected mobile launcher cluster. Infrared imagery shows vehicles beginning to move. Too late. Impact. Secondary flashes ripple outward as stored fuel and equipment ignite in quick succession. 2:49. The airborne strike group reaches weapons release range. Growler jamming active. Electronic interference floods known air defense frequencies. Coastal systems struggle to hold stable tracks. Their radar picture begins to break apart. Alpha 1 Pickle. The first precision-guided munition releases cleanly, gliding downward under GPS guidance. It strikes a reinforced command and control structure. The blast is contained, but decisive. The roof folds inward and the signal from the site drops away. Alpha 2 Pickle. A second weapon impacts near a group of mobile launch vehicles attempting to scatter. A thermal bloom spreads quickly across the satellite feed. Within seconds, 3 primary launch locations are either disabled or burning. 2:52. The opposing fighters that had been holding at distance turn north at full speed. They do not challenge the strike group. On the destroyer, the captain watches the feed without expression. Assess remaining launch capability. Thermal signatures decreasing across all 3 coastal grids. Intelligence reports. No additional launch plumes detected. Tomahawk flight paths complete. The strike aircraft turns south, returning under the protective umbrella of the fleet. 2:55. The Gulf remains dark. No follow-on launches, no high arc tracks, no new radar spikes. The 5th Fleet Formation maintains position in international waters, steady course and steady speed. The message has been delivered not through words, but through timing, reach and coordination. Inside CIC, logs update automatically. Every intercept, every launch, every coordinate. There is no celebration, only confirmation. Primary response objectives achieved. Operations reports. Launch infrastructure degraded. The captain gives a small nod. Maintain elevated readiness. Because in this region, silence can mean 2 things: reset or recalculation. 3:02. Infrared satellites show residual fires along the coastline. Emergency response vehicles cluster near the affected sites. Radar activity remains minimal. The fleet does not advance. It does not pursue. It holds. Layered defense remains active. Combat air patrol remains airborne. Electronic warfare continues scanning for any renewed emissions. The counter-response was precise, limited, and contained, but unmistakable. They attempted to overwhelm the formation. The fleet answered by reducing the source of the threat. No warning display, no uncontrolled escalation beyond the immediate envelope. Only coordination, discipline, and reach. And somewhere inland, commanders reviewing their own screens now see empty radar returns and glowing coordinates where active launch positions had been moments earlier. The Gulf is calm again. But the balance has shifted. Not through noise, through control. 3:18 local time. The Gulf is still. No launch plumes, no radar spikes, no engine trails cutting across the night. Only the faint glow of controlled fires along the distant coastline. Small, contained, and no longer transmitting launch signatures. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display has returned to baseline. Friendly tracks only. Combat Air Patrol holding north. Electronic surveillance running at sustained intensity. Fleet status, the captain asks. Green across the formation, comes the reply. No battle damage, all systems operational. 27 inbound threats, 0 impacts. 3 launch complexes degraded, no injuries reported. The numbers are simple, the implications are not. Above the formation, F/A-18S rotate through fuel cycles, maintaining a visible perimeter. The E-2D Hawkeye continues its orbit, radar sweeping hundreds of miles in every direction. On deck, ordnance crews quietly begin resetting defensive capacity. Cells that fired earlier are being prepared for replenishment. This is not a victory lap, it is reset. 3:42. Satellite confirmation arrives with high-resolution imagery of the response zones. 1 fixed radar array reduced to debris. 2 mobile launcher positions burned out. Multiple support vehicles abandoned in place. No new launch signatures. No renewed coastal radar lock. For the first time since the opening contact, the entire northern sector appears quiet. The captain studies the display for several seconds. Then he speaks softly. Hold formation. No one questions the order. The fleet remains exactly where it was before the first inbound track appeared. In international waters, steady and deliberate. The difference is what the other side now knows. The shield held. The network held. And when the launch sites revealed themselves, they became part of the same map they had tried to challenge. Outside, the water is black and calm again. Inside CIC, the screens continue to glow. The crew does not relax. They monitor, they verify, they wait. Because the night over the Persian Gulf has become quiet once more. But no one mistakes quiet for over. The hardened command site has collapsed inward. Communications across the sector drop sharply. Residual emissions are almost gone. Intelligence confirms that coastal radar coverage has been significantly reduced. The 5th Fleet flagship remains steady in international waters off Bahrain. No course change, no withdrawal, no sudden movement. Maritime traffic that had been temporarily redirected during the engagement window begins to return to normal. Tankers resume scheduled transits. Civilian shipping lanes reopen under naval escort. There is no public announcement from the bridge, no dramatic declaration, only continuity. 410, opposing air assets remain grounded beyond their forward operating bases. Surface vessels stay in port. Electronic monitoring shows cautious, limited communication between coastal units. The attempted saturation approach did not fracture the fleet. It clarified the threshold. In modern naval conflict, escalation is measured in seconds and meters. Tonight, those measurements favored training, coordination, and layered defense. Inside the Combat Information Center, sailors begin rotating out of peak alert posture and into sustained watch. Helmets come off, headsets stay on. The logs continue to update. Every intercept is archived, every radar emission is stored, every second is timestamped. Because documentation is not just routine, it is strategic. 5:55. First light begins to soften the eastern horizon. The Gulf shifts from black to deep blue. Debris fields from intercepted threats drift quietly across the water, already being mapped for recovery and analysis. The sea itself gives no sign that less than 3 hours earlier, the night had been cut open by high-speed arcs, defensive fire, and coordinated intercepts. The captain steps briefly onto the bridge wing and scans the waterline. No smoke trails now, no hostile aircraft overhead, only friendly patrols, calm water, and a formation still intact. They launch to intimidate, the operations officer says quietly beside him. The captain does not answer right away. He watches the first edge of sunlight break over the horizon. They miscalculated, he replies. Back inside CIC, the final status summary scrolls across the main display. 27 inbound threats stopped. 2 ballistic intercepts confirmed. Multiple cruise profile threats defeated across outer and inner defensive layers. 1 reconnaissance UAV removed from the picture. 3 coastal launch complexes degraded. Fleet operational readiness uncompromised. The 5th Fleet does not alter its patrol pattern. It does not withdraw. It does not push beyond its legal operating area. It remains. Because presence, when sustained and disciplined, is often more decisive than spectacle. By 6 a.m. local time, the Gulf has returned to its commercial rhythm. Fishing boats move cautiously along the shallows. Cargo vessels follow predictable lanes. Naval escorts maintain quiet overwatch. There will be statements later. There will be analysis. But at sea, the calculation is simpler. They launched. The fleet absorbed the pressure. Then it answered with precision. No panic. No uncontrolled escalation. No overreach. Layered defense held. Response authority was exercised within defined limits. The message was delivered without a single public sentence. Steel does not argue. It calculates. And in the early light over Bahrain, the 5th Fleet sails on exactly as it had before. Steady course, steady speed, ready. Because in contested waters, deterrence is not loud, it is consistent. And tonight, consistency held the line.